My name is Anna. I do cinema marketing for Zeiss in the Americas region. I'll go ahead and let you introduce yourself, Colette. Go ahead and tell us who you are and what you do.
My name is Colette Gabriel. I'm the general manager of Keslow Camera Chicago.
And over here we have...
I'm Zoe Oltsopoulos-Borys, and I'm the general manager VP of Panavision Chicago.
Wonderful. Well, Colette and Zoe, I'm happy to be up here with you today to talk about the many interesting career paths on the manufacturing side and rental and beyond the set overall. Why don't, Zoe, can you start out and just tell us a little bit about your background and what led you to Panavision?
So my story is a little unique because I'm a displaced northerner. I'm Canadian, and so I made my way stateside in '89. I was down in Florida, went to college there, and right out of college, I started working for a company known as Chapman Cranes and Dollies. I think everybody knows that. That's when there was still a tax credit incentive in the state of Florida. We had Fortune Hunters, Sequest, Sheena. Disney and Universal were still very viable sound stages, and so I was there. I graduated from a college called Rollins in Winter Park, Florida. I had interned at Chapman, and when I graduated, they invited me to come back. And then from there, I moved I moved from Florida to Minnesota, and I had a 10-state territory working as a motion picture rep for Kodak, which at that time, believe it or not, Prince was my biggest client because he shot everything on film.
Pretty cool.
Paisley Park Studios. The cinematographer that he used was a gentleman by the name of Jeff Stonehouse. I think Mystery 3000's resurrected itself, but that's what he used to shoot there. And then from Minnesota, I moved to Chicago in '96, and I was working for Panavision Chicago here. And then the unfortunate thing is an actor strike happened with the commercial industry in 2000. And being a Canuck, I was able to go across the border and work back for Panavision Toronto for 4 years. And then, it's kind of funny. And then from there, I moved back, was in Florida for 3 years, working for Panavision in Orlando, came back here. In 2006, I worked as the general manager for Fletcher Camera and Lenses. We were acquired, merged into VER. And then after VER, I went over to PRG here in Chicago, but I was floating throughout the United States for them, and then came back with Panavision 2018 of May. So that's my timeline.
Wonderful.
And I'm sticking to it.
Well, thank you for sharing all of that. What would you say are some of the main differences when, on the manufacturer side and then working in rental and with Panavision being both? How does that all work together?
I think for the most part, obviously, as a manufacturer, we're always intrigued because we're able to get feedback from our client base and feed it right back into a direct pipeline of manufacturing and ingenuity with our engineers and our optics, which is really what Panavision's known for, our anamorphic and large format. I think when I worked on the rental side of the business, the beauty of it was I was able to form a lot of strategic alliances with a lot of different companies that are represented here. As we all know, the longer you're in the business, the more you realize that it's a small community. It's a very tight community. Regardless if we're competitors or not, we all look after one another. So there is collaboration. At the end of the day, all of us have the same goal. I think all of us are very committed to the cinematographer, camera crews. At the time when I was at PRG, we were doing LED immersive environments. So we were working with gaffers and cinematographers and production designers. So you're really able to network with different parts of crew when you're a rental and when you're a manufacturer. But I think when Panavision, we're very much more focused on cinematographers and what they're looking for and how they're looking to evolve with their craft. And then we design products that factor in what their needs are.
And Colette, can you share a bit about your background? What were you doing before Keslow? When did you start at Keslow? And what has your journey been like so far?
So it started in Chicago when I came here to study at Columbia College, Chicago. And unfortunately, when I graduated, was, as Zoe was talking about, with the actor strike and things, Panavision Chicago had just shut down, so the industry here was kind of nil at that point, very small. So I went to LA because, that's where things were being made. I went out there. I was fortunate enough to land an internship with Dean Cundy and worked for him for a number of years, just starting as an intern, then camera PA. And then there was a period of time where they couldn't take me on set as a camera PA, so they said, you should go work at a rental house and gain experience there. So I went and worked at Panavision Woodland Hills, and I did gain a ton of experience working in a rental house, and also met a lot of people who ended up hiring me later. So then Dean and his crew were able to get me back on a job with them and get me into Local 600 as a film loader. So then I started doing that and did that for a few more years in LA, and then decided that LA wasn't the place for me. So even though I was very successful there and fortunate for all the opportunities I had there, it just wasn't right. And so my husband and I decided to come back here. And that was in 2008 when there was an economic downturn, and I didn't know what I was going to do here. But actually, Dean introduced me to Zoe. So I had one film contact here who then, Zoe, who's Miss Networking Queen, and she's trying to figure out how to connect people to people, brought me into Fletcher. She was there at the time and just got me to, introduced to some people. Unfortunately, they couldn't hire me at that point, but I just was networking with people. But also, I didn't want to work on set anymore. At 25, I developed tendonitis in my Achilles, which was just painful, standing on concrete all day, working 16 hours a day. So I decided that I wanted to do something still in the industry that was a little less difficult for me physically, and then also just less hours. Not that we don't put in a ton of hours in rentals, but it was just a little bit more of a work-life balance. So Cinespace started building up their studio here and was looking to house a rental house on site. So they connected with Robert Keslow and decided to open up Keslow Camera Chicago. And I connected very randomly to Robert and was hired on to be the GM and start the office. So I've grown the office here from me to what we are now, and it's been 10 years. So,
That's amazing. Yeah, so as you all can hear, a lot of us have known each other for a long time and have worked together in different ways and capacities, and it's really cool to hear the story of the connection of the two of you. In terms of Keslow, that's a really interesting business because it's been growing rapidly. Can you tell us a little bit more about that, just being a part of Keslow? And Keslow is obviously involved in a lot of R&D with manufacturers, so could you tell us a bit more about that experience and how you've been involved in that?
Yeah, so our R&D, mostly started out doing a lot of building out camera cages and just making the cameras even better for ACs to use. And then started working more and more with manufacturers. So unlike Panavision, which manufactures their own lenses and cameras, we don't do that, but we do network with the vendors. So Zeiss is one of those vendors where we worked pretty early on with the Zeiss Supreme Primes and Supreme Prime Radiance. And a lot of that is just, as Zoe said, is having those connections to cinematographers and trying to get them what they want. So get them the gear that's going to achieve the look that they're looking for. So it's grabbing different people to find out what they want, having them beta test equipment, and bringing that together. And then, a big thing to talk about right now is Top Gun. Hopefully you guys have seen it. If not,
how many of you
amazing.
have seen it by a show of hands? Okay,
good.
So a few of you.
So we've worked closely with Sony on their Venice camera, and that was where they first started using the Rialto, and then also just had to kind of custom fit things and work on custom batteries for it too, and work with the Air Force on what they could physically fit in the cockpit, and also just not having too much lithium-ion battery power on there just for safety, So it was pretty incredible, and there are a lot of amazing behind-the-scenes videos and articles you can read about it.
And what does it feel like when you actually, get into the theater or screen that film for the first time? How does that work internally? Do you guys kind of celebrate that together and try to watch stuff together as a team when it gets released?
Yeah, we did team outings, so each office went as a group to go see the movie. In LA, we have like 115 people in that office, so they rented out a whole theater to go see it. It's just nice to feel a part of it. And, I'm still one of those people that can enjoy watching a movie, even though I know the technical side behind it. I'll start watching it thinking about that and then just forget it all and get sucked in because I like movies.
And then how about for you, Zoe? What is it like on the Panavision side when a film gets released? And how does that feel when you actually see it come to life and know that you were a part of that?
Well, Panavision as a company has been around since 1945, so the history in itself is something to be so proud of. And we've evolved as the craft as well as the technical have evolved. And so every film that we're a part of, there's no question. I get more excited when I hear cinematographers talk about it. Like Colette, I go to see a film for the purpose of seeing a film. I don't want to get into the critiquing of it because I think beauty's in the eye of the beholder. When it comes to cinema, I think if you look at some of the lenses and some of the demos, characteristics of lenses is truly an aesthetic that is in the eye of the beholder. And the cinematographer, my role is never to tell a DP what's wrong or right. I just get them what they want. But I would say in terms of the cinematic, when I go to the theater, I do it for the love of cinema. I get more excited when I hear cinematographers talk about it and talk what was important to them and their elements. And when I'm on panels and I'm hearing them and collaborating with them, that's what really makes me excited. I mean, I went old school this year for this trade show. We have a film camera in our booth that was shot by Conrad Hall. If you IMDb Conrad Hall, he's one of the most prolific cinematographers of all time. And that camera that's in there was a Chicago used camera for Road to Perdition, Blues Brothers, and it was used on Ferris Bueller's Day Off. So I thought specifically because the union's doing a film loading workshop that, film's coming back around. We're hoping, Colette and I, we both have our 35 mil and 60 mil cameras. But yes, what's old is new again. So I think that's the part of the industry that I get excited about. It comes in waves.
Yeah, absolutely. There's a lot of DPs that are looking for vintage looks, and that's kind of what brought about the development of the radiance lenses for Zeiss, which Keslow helped us with. I wanted to ask about just for a general overview of what happens in a rental house in terms of the roles and responsibilities, and how does that break down? If you could both share a bit about that and different roles that you've worked in throughout the years.
Well, I started in shipping, and I firmly believe that there's so much you learn. I think it is a great place to start in a rental house because you literally touch every single piece of gear. You learn what it's called and you see what it comes with. So then you start to put the pieces of the puzzle together of, oh, okay, this gets used with that. And it's not a glamorous job, but it's exciting to check out all the camera gear. And then, go around and then you start meeting everybody else in the rental house of the technicians who are repairing the equipment or coming up with ideas for new equipment or things to attach to that equipment to make it work better. So there's that. So there's a lot of the technical side of working with the assistants to help get them what they need. And then, kind of more the business side is really having those relationships with the cinematographers, with the ACs, with the producers. And we kind of are in this zone where sometimes we're caught in the middle of having to make sure we're making the DP happy, but also trying to make the producer happy. So the producer has their budget, the DP probably wants this, and it's trying to help them get in the middle so that they're all happy because we're both of their clients.
I think to avoid redundancy, because I would say that Colette captured the essence of what it is to a T, I'll give you a bigger perspective of the fact that when you work for companies that are vendors, let's just say all these companies that are here representing the industry behind the scenes, your intention out of school is not necessarily to go and work at a rental house, but I will tell you the value add of what that means. When I worked for Chapman Cranes and Dollies, for instance, fresh out of college, went to a very expensive college, and they offered me a job as a receptionist. I thought, that's beneath me. I can't start as a receptionist, but there's value add in every step of the way when you're in these companies that you just have to take it for what it's offering you. So the offering that Chapman gave me, besides getting to meet Shaquille O'Neal and Penny Hardaway and all the boys from the Orlando Magic at the time, is that I was reading the trades all the time at my desk. I was answering the phone. I was figuring out who the players were that worked in Orlando. Who were the UPMs? Who were the production supervisors? Who were the dolly grips? Who were the gaffers? That was one chapter. Working for Kodak, the value add there is that, it was very technical. I was very, very intimidated because obviously I didn't have a photochemical background, and learning sensitometry and understanding film emulsions and having guys in Rochester talk in a language that was way over my head was very intimidating. But the value add again is you have to understand what the process is all about and understand that for the most part, there's guys back in Rochester that are brainiacs. They are high intellectual individuals, but they don't have social skills. They can't talk to anybody here. And that's where I came in. And I remember crying because I was in Rochester training for 3 weeks. And they were talking with stuff that just made no sense to me. And I'm like, why did they hire me? Why did they hire me? And then two people that were seniors over me and been in the industry for about 10, 15 years before I was getting in said to me, it's because you have a personality, Zoe. The technical guys in Rochester are there to support you. You just bring in the work and the DPs, and you got the technical knowledge right behind you. That's what the give and take is of the business. When you work for a smaller company like Fletcher, you start collaborating with different companies. I'm really proud to say that I formed an alliance after I left Panavision, which, Panavision's known for their anamorphic glass. So what do I do when I leave Panavision? Because you can have it all, but you can't have it all at the same time as a female in this industry, and I was focusing more on my family. I formed an alliance with a company called Hawk Anamorphic, and I'm proud because I helped them form an alliance with Keslow. I mean, all of our industries, we all need everything. We all can't be everything to everybody. So having relationships and leveraging each other to work with our cinematographers, because cinematographers, that's what they really care about. They want to know, hey, can Colette and I work together on a job? Can we exchange information? Because at some stage, what she has as her offering with the Radiance lenses and other palettes of options of lenses that she has, that's going to be the direction one cinematographer wants to go for one movie. Another movie, they might want Panavision glass. The truth is, I used to say all the time that there's acrylics, there's oils, and there's watercolors. Cinematographers are the same way. They have various they'll break down a script, they'll talk to a director, they figure out what's important in the script, and then they make their decisions on what is the best way to tell that story. So having all these collaborations is really, really key. You can look at it for face value and go, okay, your rental house, but there is a deeper world that exists with the logistics of how it's broken down and how it flows and works.
Absolutely. That's all very great points. On the manufacturer side, on the rental side, as Colette and Zoe are describing, we're not here to tell the artists what tool they should choose. We're here to help them achieve that vision. Another thing I wanted to ask about is, on the manufacturer side, we so love and appreciate the art of what a technician does and the creativity that it takes to maintain the integrity of a cinema lens over the years. What are some of the things that are unique about being on the lens tech side of things? And that's a very deep career path to get into. So can you tell us a little bit about that?
Sure. We should get Al Collins up here. He's a lens master, and he's walking around here. I think it's a fascinating career, and I know a number of people want to get into working with optics because it is so fascinating. It also takes many, many years to learn and master, and I'm sure Al is still learning things, after many, many years of being in this industry. So, it's if you want to start doing it, obviously start reading about things. Go to Jay Holben's class today. He's a master of lenses, and he's going to talk about the science of that and show off a bunch of interesting lenses out there.
And with all of the technology changing and lots of different cameras coming out and being released, how do technicians on the camera side or the lens side or both, how do they stay up to date and get all the training that they need for all the new equipment?
They come to Filmscape. There's
right.
A little shameless plug for us. That's. So I'm on the board of Filmscape as well. Zoe has been helping out tremendously as well with this, and our goal is just to get manufacturers here, get incredible professionals to share their wealth of knowledge and give that to everybody for free. So that's what we're trying to build here, is just bringing more support to our community here that gets left out a little bit in this industry, with LA being so big and the volume there is huge. So it's understandable that there's a lot of continuing education there and trade shows and things like that, and also on the East Coast and even in Atlanta. So just trying to do that here. What an amazing thing that happened during the pandemic. I mean, we're still in it, but as everything shut down, was so many manufacturers said, hey, we're going to do Zoom sessions. If you want to learn about our stuff, just join in the conversation. And then it was just an amazing time for anybody to have access to talk to the manufacturers, talk to huge cinematographers would be on those calls, and anybody could just talk to them because everybody was just stuck at home. So exactly. What else we had to do? So I'm going to flip it to you. How did that come about? And are you guys, I know you guys, Zeiss does these conversations with cinematographers.
Yes.
There's going to be one later today with John Lindley. But you guys were doing that online. Are you still doing that? How else are you connecting with people about education?
Yeah, thank you for bringing that up. That's something that we love to do at Zeiss. Every month, we either do a live Zeiss conversation at an event like this. We've been doing them at CineGear and NAB. And our Zeiss conversation series is all about the art of cinematography and actually speaking to the artists themselves and figuring out why did they choose the tools that they chose and what inspired them. And sometimes we talk about specific projects, and sometimes we get more into their journey and their career. And we love to do a Q&A and make sure that everyone's getting really helpful information that's, they're actually going to use that knowledge when they go into their next prep or when they're choosing their equipment for their next show. But we love to, it's, a lot of these relationships and connections we have bring about a lot of these interesting DPs and bring them our way. So thanks to both of you for, also helping us in that sense, and always letting us know about interesting stories and people that are, creating these beautiful masterpieces. So.
Yeah, everybody should definitely. Zeiss is, it's really, really a great series that they do. It's like Colette said, they filled a need. I mean, I think we all were vulnerable during COVID, because what happened with our industry is we're sort of like recession-proof, to be honest, our industry. So it really took a COVID. I think all of us have come back into it with a new sense of like what our understanding is of life, and reprioritizing what that looks like. But I would tell you the value add during COVID was definitely what Zeiss was doing, is continuing to do. So I would encourage you guys, if you're interested in seeing the real inside of a mind of a cinematographer, that's a really great way that they're being very vulnerable and exposing it and letting you know what they're thinking, and it's just a great series that they do.
Thank you for that. Whether we have a live conversation show or not, we're trying to keep these talks accessible to, people all over the place virtually. So if you go to our YouTube channel, Zeiss Lenses Americas or Zeiss Cinematography, you can find a lot of these educational talks and watch the replays. We love to see you pop in there in the webinars and do Q&A with us. So it's the audience that keeps us going as well. So
I have another question for you.
Sure.
So one thing that I finally realized, maybe I should have realized it sooner, but is that how easy it is to approach manufacturers. Maybe before, especially just as a student or starting out in the industry,
Sure.
like, I can't talk to, the people that are creating these cameras and lenses and everything. But what I've come to learn in having these relationships is that, no, they are so approachable. And even I'm looking at Canon's booth, even a company like Canon that's massive, there's still like, the cinema team that is very, you can connect to, and kind of give your feedback. I mean, I've seen, feedback that's been given by, my team, and then you see it change. So it's just amazing to me that anybody can make a difference and make the products better. So if you want to speak to that, but then also at what point when you guys are developing something new, at what point do you start bringing in a cinematographer or rental houses or anybody to give their feedback on what you're producing?
Yeah, that's a great question. The answer is, it's a constant movement. It's constant all the time. We're out there listening to what artists want. Again, that's how the Radiance lenses came about. That's what got me so interested in actually coming and working for Zeiss, was the fact that they looked at, what cinematographers wanted, and they did a lot of surveying. Okay, what are the characteristics that you're looking for? And a lot of people said they like blue flares and warmer skin tones. So that's what Zeiss did, is they went and created a tool that people actually wanted to use. But yeah, it's constantly gathering information and just listening to the artists most of all. And on the rental side, you're seeing the pulse of exactly what people are demanding and what they're using. It's always interesting to watch those trends and see how people are using different tools, because it's different for each artist. So yeah.
Well, you want to tell us your story?
Yeah, absolutely.
Your journey in this industry?
I'm from Grand Rapids, Michigan, so only a couple hours away from here. When I was in Michigan, I grew a startup business in a different industry. So I did that for about 5 years and absolutely loved it. I've always had a love for, film and television and cinematography. So when I moved out to LA, I ended up working for a startup company called Dynamic that provided a sub-rental solution for other rental companies. So through that experience, that helped me a lot, in terms of what I know now, being with a manufacturer. Coming from Dynamic, I really understood what the struggles were, what rental houses were dealing with, and where they needed support. So I really, really enjoyed that experience. Got to work with a global team and understand how equipment is adopted and demanded globally at rental houses. So I developed a love and appreciation for what you do in this business, and again, like going back to the technician role, lens technicians are big heroes in the industry. They solve a lot of problems, and I just wish there was always more appreciation for what rental houses do. Now being over at Zeiss, it's really helpful to have a lot of that knowledge and information about how rental houses operate, and it's been really fun journey at Zeiss, being able to be close to the artists and hearing their stories and interviewing DPs. So I really love learning about optics as well, so becoming a bit of a lens nerd too, so that's been a lot of fun.
I have a question for you.
Yeah, absolutely.
I'm just curious with the Zeiss having such a diverse, they're in every single part of the business. So do things that are happening in the medical field somewhat influence what's being developed in the cinematic or another division of Zeiss? And do those collaborations happen amongst the different business units under the Zeiss umbrella?
Absolutely. It's with any business you can imagine resources and expertise and knowledge being shared between different departments. Just thinking about how a single company might collaborate between departments, Zeiss does that between all of the different business divisions. So when it comes down to the knowledge and expertise of the engineers, the tools, not everyone just has supercomputers laying around. So Zeiss has a lot of interesting resources in that sense, because there's all of these different divisions, between vision and the medical technology, hunting and nature. It's been very cool to learn about how they utilize those resources, and a lot of the time comes down to the team and people knowing when another division needs information, or when a tool might be helpful for someone else. So that was a good question. So I also wanted to ask more about the relationship side of things and the mentoring side of working in a rental house, because you've had a lot of people that have mentored you over the years and tried to teach you what's useful and what they know, and now you're taking a lot of people under your wing and trying to develop them in this business. Can you tell us a little bit more about that, and what do you enjoy most about that leadership and mentoring side of what you do?
Well, I think all of us have to pay it forward. I think if there's anything we've learned is, I've been doing this, believe it or not, for 32 years. And as much as I've done a global circuit of knocking on doors and hustling the business and being visible to our peer group and influencing them and helping them get what they want, at some stage, I'm content. And knowing what I've given and how much I've given, especially when I was single and I didn't have kids, I gave a lot of myself to the industry. Now I'm scaling back a little bit because, like I've said before, I think as women in the business, we can have it all, but I don't think we can have it all at the same time. You make choices. I would say for myself, when I first got into the business, I actually wanted to be the next Sherry Lansing and Gail Ann Hurd. Sherry Lansing at the time was head of Paramount. Gail Ann Hurd was coming out of Roger Corman. She started Terminator franchise with James Cameron, and they were married. I met her. She's like, get to Hollywood, I'll help you. I thought I was going to be a producer, do more creative. But the traditional side of me struggled because I wanted to get married and have children. I'm Greek, and you know, the industry is somewhat of a gypsy industry. At least it was. I think now what I'm seeing is, you know, when I was here the first time around in the 90s, I saw crew having to take 2-3 jobs to make ends meet. There was not enough work to sustain the Chicago market. Now there is. So I think we're all fat and happy, but, you know, there comes a cost with all that. And at some stage, myself, when I was single, I like I said, I gave a lot. People were guiding me and mentoring me. At the end of the day, with cinematographers and what you do and what you choose to do in this business is about your credibility and being a person of your word. We all have technology, okay? But we have to be available. Like, we're available 24/7. The rental house business doesn't stop just because we have published hours. They will contact us because they're on a film set, cinematographer, but they know they're working onto another movie. They'll start on their iPad pinging us like, hey, this is what I'm thinking. Can you start scheduling and making sure it's available? So my mentor, when I worked back at Kodak again, she had been in the business for already 40 years. She worked for ACFA. And then she was coming back to Kodak. And I just remember being overwhelmed by the magnitude of Hollywood. And I would fly in, and the kindness of her, she'd take my hand and she would introduce me around to these tentpole cinematographers, because she thought enough of me and how I was going to continue my journey, and she already didn't have anything else to prove. So her philosophy is you pay it forward. Now where I'm at 32 years later, I don't really feel like I have much to prove either, from the sense that the people I know, I probably know more people than I care to know my whole entire lifetime, but it's working for me now. It's easy. And now I'm focusing on my kids. The balance for me is the work-life balance here is in Chicago, where I got consumed in other markets I went to that were a lot busier. And my mentors used to say, don't do it at the sacrifice of family, because we know the divorce rate in our business is pretty high because everybody's away from their families for long periods of time. So you have to take a reflection piece and recognize where you are and where you want to go. And you have to recognize there's going to be interruptions along the way, because I went in with one intent, and obviously if you ask me, like, did I plan this career? Absolutely not. Not at all. All I did is do a good job at the companies I was with. One door opened up another door, opened up another door, opened up another door. And at the time, I just had the maturity and wisdom, and through my mentors, just asking them questions to recognize which doors I should be going through and what that meant to my quality of life. And that meant moving around a lot early on. Now, as I'm trying to mentor staff, and there's a group called Rise out of the UK that's doing a North American mentorship. It's really just having somebody that you can bounce ideas off and exchanges. There's no right or wrong answer, as we all know. Everything is a personal experience. I think you just have to find people that, pardon the term, actually just give a shit, and you talk to them, you collaborate with them, and they guide you. They bring you down this path. That's all I can say about mentorship, I think.
Yeah. Colette, can you share a bit about that? Maybe tell us about some of the ways that, you know, people uplifted you in your career, mentored you, and how you're paying that forward now with Keslow.
Sure. I mean, yes, I echo what Zoe said 100%. Yeah, I think it was just, the important thing is make sure you go in eager to learn, eager to do new things, and don't think that you know it all, because you don't. None of us do. But just go in ready to take on whatever comes your way, and you'll find that guidance through the people that you're working with, connecting with. And like Zoe said earlier, like about taking the receptionist position, you know, any random thing can connect you to where you need to be. And I believe that all experiences help grow you. And, you know, even if they're not film related, they will still help you in the industry. So yeah, just, you know, finding those people you connect with and listening to them, and then helping you sort of figure out, oh, is that the path I want to take? Or am I feeling the same thing? You know, I mean, Zoe's talking about a family, and, you know, there was, you know, growing up, I don't know, well, yeah, you get married and you have kids. That's what happens. And then, you know, as I started getting a little bit older, I had a friend who, she's like, man, I hit 30 and I'm like, I gotta have kids. And so I started thinking about that, and I was moving in the other direction, where I decided I didn't personally want to have kids. I love kids. I just like playing with them for a few hours, and then they can go home and parents can deal with the crying and whining. But that's part of, life and career path. And I think that part of that, though, too, is realizing, well, sure, I don't have kids that are, can need a lot of my love and attention, but that doesn't mean that I shouldn't be, paying attention to my personal life as well. And so I've certainly let this career consume me at times. So it's, been making sure that I'm taking, a step back and having that balance. And then just, but back to mentors, it's just people come to you over the years and just end up being those people. I mean, Zoe and I talk a lot and hang out personally, and we're competitors, right? But this is, especially in Chicago, we're all about our community and making sure that we have a really strong film community. And in the end, what matters is that we show a good face and show how wonderful it is to film in Chicago. And so we're not, sure, we might be competing for, a job here and there, but ultimately we're trying to help each other out. I mean, if just one rental house was in Chicago for camera and one for G&E and such, we wouldn't look like a reputable city. We need to have each other to help build each other up.
Absolutely, yeah. And we're seeing a lot more women and people from underrepresented communities working for manufacturers, working for rental companies. What has the journey been like? As women, for the two of you, growing so much in your career and having these amazing opportunities and experiences. What has that been like in terms of, challenges, being a woman in this part of the industry and this behind the scenes off the set?
I'm going to laugh at this one because honestly, my dad was as old school as anything, okay? My dad was old school Greek who wouldn't even want me to go to college. He just thought I should marry rich. And I remember when I wanted to go to college, and my dad's like, no, you just got to marry. I was a theater major. I ended up going theater major, dance minor. But back in my early 20s, my dad's just like, this is the time you should be getting married. And we'd go to Greece, and he'd bring guys around and say, courtship. And I would say, if you do that to me, I'm going to end up leaving and not coming back around. I'm not ready to get married. There's a lot I want to achieve personally. My own self-worth wants to be developed on my own merit. So it was actually my brother that paid for me to go to college. This is as challenging as it gets because it starts at home. And from there, I would just say, I think I actually just decided when I worked at Chapman and I laid dolly track on a Shaquille O'Neal Reebok commercial, and I put up the Lenny, or the high base with the Lenny arm at the time. The guys were all laughing at me and going, yeah, if you want to be taken seriously, you're going to have to work, put your grip gloves on and show us what you got. And you do it because you're looking to be perceived as an equal amongst your peer group, and some of these guys, dolly grips, there wasn't that many women. There still isn't that many dolly grips if you think about it. But I think what you have to recognize in this business is you got to fight the fight. And you got to do it with a level of diplomacy, but you don't want to be a pushover, and you don't want people pushing on you. And the industry, coincidentally with my dad, going back to my dad's story, is like, I think I went after the most male-dominated part of the industry, which is cinematography. Because if you even look at the American Society of Cinematographers, I think now we're up to 20 ASC members of women. You know how long that took? When I started the business in 1995, my mentor, going back to my mentor again, she introduced me to Brianne Murphy, who was the first woman to be in the ASC. And she ended up saying, honestly, why do I want to have to sit on a board of the ASC and struggling what my worth is as a cinematographer when the guys on the board make it about gender. And she said, I would rather go into the DGA, which is what she did. She went into the Directors Guild because she's like, there's residuals, better benefits, and I don't get the grief of like, can you handle a camera crew? Can you handle your crew? That's, I think if you were to ask any woman cinematographer, when they get interviewed, I've talked to many, they get interviewed 2-3 times when a cinematographer that's male, no offense, gets interviewed once, gets brought in. These women have to go 2-3 times to show their vision of the script, say what they would do. They're always asked the question, well, can you handle the crew? Are you going to be a pushover? Are they going to be able to push you around? Are you going to be able to make your days? What does that matter? I mean, they're equipped to do what their job is. I've seen it more from that point of view. With myself, I just wipe it off. I don't know what to tell you. I've had a lot of people try to put me in my place, and I go right back at them. So I probably, over the years, I think people know I'm a woman of my word. I think that's all that matters, really.
Thank you for sharing that. And yeah, it's very interesting to hear about, you know, your journey, and that it actually started at home for you, you know, as early as that, and how much you pushed through. And how about for you, Colette? What would you say about that topic of, you know, being a woman that's grown so much on the business side in this industry?
Well, to start at home, I had a different experience where I was mostly just raised by my father, and he raised me to be a very independent person, and so I was pretty much raised to be an adult by the time I was a teenager. So I think having that maturity going into it really helped. And when I went to college, you know, any of my cinematography classes, I would be one of 1 or 2 women in those classes. So I got very used to being around lots of men, and I think to this day I'm more comfortable having male friends than female friends. So it definitely has been ingrained into me. And then getting onto set, and yeah, I don't know, I just got so used to it that now seeing more and more women coming into the field, it's very refreshing. And I just didn't have that experience, but I would see, yeah, more and more. And then, you know, when there would be 3 of us, 3 women in a camera department on a show, that was like, whoa, wow, cool.
Powerful.
But I was comfortable enough in the male-dominated field that it never, it didn't bother. I mean, it bothered me as a whole that there should be more women in here, but it didn't disrupt me. However, I definitely, always felt having to prove myself and, make sure that, nobody was carrying cases for me or doing this. I was strong and I could do everything. And I would lay dolly track and I would, lift heavy cases and stuff. And now I'm at the point where I think I've proven myself enough. So if somebody wants to carry that, thing for me, fine. Then, I don't need to prove that anymore. I know who I am. And so it's nice to feel a little more comfortable. But yeah, it's amazing to see more and more women. And here in Chicago, I mean, a number of women in the camera department and other departments. I'm just used to seeing the camera assistants all the time. It's wonderful to see. And back to mentorship and stuff, one of my old professors from Columbia College, Dana Cupper, is upstairs teaching a film loading class, and she taught me how to load film, and it was great to have. She was the one that really broke down like all the gear you need to have as an assistant on set and how to show up on set being prepared. So it was great to learn that from a woman.
Can I interject? So one thing that you guys should all know, because we're ahead of our time, we're now in 2022. One of the things that was back in the day of unique to Illinois that nobody else was getting around is our diversity clause in our tax credit legislation. That I've been involved with the Illinois Production Alliance since its inception, and it's a group that represents unions, vendors, studios, It's us making sure our senators and our elected officials understand our industry and the economic impact of our industry. But when we wrote our legislation, we always factor in the diversity of making sure that it was inclusive of what our population is. Now that's unique because only now in 2022 are you starting to see other states revisit what their legislation looks like. And we have like more women, African American, Asian on sets probably than any other film crews that you'll go and see in other markets. Christy Taddeo, who's in the 476 booth, I mean, she was my intern back in the day when Panavision was here the first time around. We had bought a company called Victor Duncan, so we had lighting, grip, and generators. She was in the lighting and grip interning through Columbia College, and look at her now. She's on the board of the 476, and she's quite the mover and shaker with her union. So with the diversity, I think Illinois was ahead of its time, honestly. Like other states now are asking us about what that looks like, and the unions are starting to figure out programs to make sure, again, that their membership is representative of the population.
Yeah, it's really amazing when you see these people that you've worked with and you've helped or mentored in some way, and seeing what they're doing with their career. You know, and sometimes people, they, you know, work for a manufacturer, they work for a rental house, they go on to set. Sometimes they you know, get that experience before. So yeah, it's so cool, and I love to hear these stories about these challenges that you face, because it gives us so much hope for the future. That, you know, hearing your story, I, you know, feel more inspired that, yeah, I can push forward, you know, with challenges that I'm dealing with. In my background, you know, growing up in a very like religious and conservative area of West Michigan, I did have kind of a unique situation with my mom being like a big feminist. Like, no one in my mom's family, you know, took a guy's last name when they got married. You know, my mom was the breadwinner of the family, so I kind of had this idea of myself as, you know, hey, I want to be an entrepreneur, I want to run my own business. I didn't really come into this industry with the intention of, oh, I want to, you know, be a director, I want to be a filmmaker, I want to be a DP. You know, I'm really still more interested in helping other people achieve those visions and being a part of it behind the scenes. But yeah, it is it's interesting, you know, seeing the industry change and become more diverse, and I hope, you know, sharing these stories, we can continue to push that forward. So I appreciate everything both of you had to share there. Yeah, please.
Also, too, there's a lady that you guys should meet. She'll be here tomorrow, Sheila Brown. She was part of the Cinecares program that created the whole trek of people in this economically depressed area of what was before Cinespace, the Ryerson steel plant, and obviously it's evolved over time. But I think it's like a 17-week program or 7-week program, and then it's through the Dick Wolf. She was able to get with them and lay out a really great plan of training, and then what happens is that you get mentored and guided into working on the film sets, and then also helping with getting into the union. She now has taken on the role and position to be head of the national AICP, which stands for Association of Independent Commercial Producers. They're based in New York. That represent the commercial industry, meaning the ad agency, the post houses, the production companies, the sound mixers. What else do they? Oh, anything post. So I just wanted to make sure that you guys knew that she'll be on a panel tomorrow talking about diversity and inclusion, because she's left the Cinecares role to be spearheading the national role for AICP, because AICP has chapters all over the United States. They've got one in Los Angeles, they've got one in New York, they got one here, AICP Midwest, and it feeds into all production. So she's another big part of what's made it very successful with our politicians looking favorably about the economic impact and helping people that necessarily wouldn't have the opportunity otherwise to work in our business.
Well, we have a few more minutes left. If anybody has any questions out there in the audience, we have a mic here. If anybody has anything that you want to ask, just raise your hand if you do. We'd be happy to take a question from you. But if nobody else has a question,
Maybe we covered it all.
I have. Yeah, we've definitely shared a lot. I think, there's just so much that you can learn in the manufacturer environment, in the rental environment, between the technical roles, the operational logistics roles, the business roles on sales, marketing, business development. Is there anything else that either of you would like to share in terms of the valuable skills that you get out of these experiences and how you can use those in other parts of the industry?
Yeah, I'll just say that it's all connected. You learn from every experience you have, and just know that being on set isn't the only avenue that you can take in this industry. There's so much support behind that too, and we all work together to make films, right? It all comes from a passion of cinema and creating moving pictures in art that could be in a commercial, or now we have so many other avenues online with different types of web formats. So there's just so much, and it's expanding, the areas are expanding of what you can do out there. And if you're looking for support and those mentors, there are a number of organizations too, locally and nationally, that can help guide you. A number of those organizations are doing little coffee hours upstairs on the mezzanine, like Mezcla Media, IFA, the Local 600 Women's Group. There's just a number of places that can help support you find your path. And then also, if you have gone to film school or in film school, those teachers of yours will want to help guide you too. And a lot of them have worked in the industry or are continuing to work in the industry here. So it's, again, we're all here to support each other in this goal.
I would just say enjoy the journey, because it is a journey. There's no right or wrong answer about what the outcome or the end goal is, because like I mentioned before, every single one of us has hiccups in the road that divert us and put us in a different path. So just do the best you can at the path and the opportunity you're given, and I promise you it'll lead into another opportunity. You might not necessarily know what that opportunity is, but it is a preparation for something else greater later on. So you just got to keep your mind and your heart open. Like Colette said, I think the biggest thing that I'm noticing that's happening with, let's just say respectfully, a younger generation of filmmakers is they don't have the patience. It's like everybody wants it all now, and our business just doesn't work that way. And I've seen people get chewed up and spit out, and then they get so unfortunately demoralized, you never see them come back again. So just enjoy what it is. Take the time to learn. You'll hit it when it's meant to hit, and it's all about script, good storytelling. Just keep your passion in check. That's all.
Well, I think that about wraps it up. That's a good note to end on. Great pieces of advice for anyone that's interested in breaking in and getting more experience. So thank you to Gary Adcock for having us and everything you've done to make this show so inclusive and amazing. Thank you to Colette for all the work you've done, for Filmscape, and Zoe, of course, as well. Thank you all for being here. Appreciate it.